Dissociative identity disorder has captivated the public for centuries. It has been portrayed in ancient stories of demonic possessions and the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, as well as current hit movies like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. However, even after centuries of observations and 40,000 identified cases, there is still no consensus on what causes dissociative identity disorder or if it is even real. Let's start with the facts that we do know. Dissociative identity disorder is classified in the DSM, and that classification is defined as a disruption in consciousness and the presence of two or more distinct identities or personality states, also referred to as different emotional states, alters, or dissociative identity states. Each of these states has its own perception of relating to and thinking about the environment and the self. There are in fact a few agreed upon facts about the disorder. It is most prevalent in young adults while being less frequent in later age groups. In addition, it is rarely found in children. It is 5 to 9 times more likely in women, but that is in dispute because many researchers believe that there are more unreported cases in men because they end up in prisons. It is believed to be the result of stress and an either real or falsely remembered trauma. Some experts even see it as a version of post-traumatic stress disorder. The treatment for dissociative identity disorder is also fairly agreed upon. The most common treatment is to try to unite the alters with the host personality. Some therapists try to eliminate several of the personalities and focus on the main ones, but this is not advisable. However, when someone has more than 2 personalities, many of the other personalities tend to dissipate within the first few weeks of therapy. Each case of dissociative identity disorder fits into one of 3 categories: pseudogenic, iatronic, and traumagenic. However, a lot of the time it is difficult to determine what type of dissociative identity disorder a given case is, and there is a lot of disagreement among researchers over the prevalence of each of the 3 different types. There are even some who believe that one of the types does not actually exist. The first type is the pseudogenic type. This happens when someone consciously creates alternate personalities with the intention to fool others. This is often used to get attention or to escape problems with the law. The novel and later movie adaptation Primal Fear portrays the story of a character that fakes to have dissociative identity disorder to get out of a murder conviction. While the story is fictional, it sheds light on a real problem in the legal system, which has prompted neuroscientists to try to find a way to differentiate those who have dissociative identity disorder with those who are faking it. Unfortunately, they have had very little success, and it is not close to a point where this can be used in a courtroom setting. The second type is the iatronic type, which is when the disorder is manufactured during therapy, much in the same way that false memories are created. Almost all experts agree that some cases are caused by this. Some even argue that the disorder is not real and that all cases come from one of these first 2 types. The researchers who support this believe that the traumatic memories and the traumatic past are faked and created in therapy. There are several findings that they cite as evidence for this. The first point of evidence is that if the traumatic childhood was real and the alternate personality was created to guard oneself from these traumatic memories, why is dissociative identity disorder so uncommonly seen in children? There are also studies that have shown that people with dissociative identity disorder are prone to creating false memories and are more susceptible to hypnosis. Perhaps the greatest piece of evidence for this was the reaction to the book and later miniseries 3 Faces of Eve. Before the book came out in 1974, there were only 200 reported cases of dissociative identity disorder in history. However, Since 1974, there have been 40,000 identified cases. Some have argued that this is because dissociative identity disorder used to be misdiagnosed as schizophrenia, and now therapists are better trained. However, it is still hard to explain this high of a jump in the number of cases. The final type is the traumagenic type. This is when dissociative identity disorder is not caused by a therapist or suggestion, and instead it is developed as a natural defense mechanism to a trauma. The only real proof of this type is the mixed evidence that has been found in brain studies. Brain imaging studies have found there to be differences in the size of the amygdala and the hippocampal regions in victims of dissociative identity disorder. However, there have been several limitations to brain imaging studies. For one, no one either believes or admits that they have the iotronic or pseudogenic type. This makes it hard to get a sample of people believed only to have the traumagenic type. In addition, brain imaging studies have been limited by the prevalence of false memories in individuals with dissociative identity disorder. In these studies, when they cue memories from an alternate personality, it is impossible to tell if different areas of the brain are involved because these memories are fabricated or because they were recalled from a different personality. In conclusion, at this time there is no way to know if this disorder is real, and there is no way of knowing why this happens to some victims who undergo a traumatic childhood and not others. However, when you really look at it, both alternatives seem hard to believe. Do any of us really believe that we can become a person with two separate identities just because a therapist implants a suggestion into our minds? On the other hand, is it really possible to have another person living inside your brain? Hopefully, new research in the field can answer these questions and shed more light on this disorder.